Ronald Smith is a Canadian facing the death penalty in the United States. Smith killed 2 men and has been on death row for nearly 30 years. On Wednesday, he will make a plea for clemency. The CBC's Mark Kelley went to Montana for this exclusive television interview with the convicted killer.
People here call this God's country. The big sky and snow-capped Rockies suggest freedom and possibility. It's an unlikely backdrop for the Montana State Prison. This is the only home Canadian Ron Smith has known for the better part of 30 years, living here on death row. There's little doubt he will die here. The only question is, will he be executed? Smith agreed to sit down with the CBC to make his plea for life in prison.
Everybody always looks at, well, you killed 2 people. Yeah, I did. I had a moment where emotions and anger got the best of me and I committed a horrible crime. That doesn't define me. If you want to define me, then take a look at the 30 years.
But it does define you.
No, it doesn't. It defines a moment. It doesn't define me.
But the consequences of that moment have lasted a lifetime. Smith and 2 friends were hitchhiking to Mexico when they were picked up by 2 men, Harvey Madman and Thomas Running Rabbit. Drunk and high on LSD, Smith wanted to steal their car, so he marched the men into the woods and shot them both in the head.
I don't feel in my own mind.
In his trial, he refused a plea deal from the state and pleaded guilty, and himself demanded the death penalty.
Jr., Mr. Smith, I hereby sentence you to be executed by hanging.
I kicked myself, obviously, for asking for the death sentence, but at the time, that's what I thought. That's what I figured I needed and deserved, and that's what I wanted.
Smith changed his mind and has been fighting ever since to have his death sentence overturned. The Canadian government has requested clemency, but only after a federal court ruled it had to follow a long-standing practice.
Since Canada got rid of the death sentence in '67, whatever it was, they've been backing Canadians with the death sentence, fervently. Yeah, and just all of a sudden they completely pulled the rug out from underneath me.
But after decades of legal battles, he's down to his last appeal for mercy. He says he deserves it.
The person that committed those crimes isn't sitting here any longer. So you're basically, and again, I'm not trying to downplay the crime. Simple fact, that person isn't here anymore.
Smith is now a grandfather and is reconciled with his family in Alberta. He wants to live for them, but he knows the very fact he's still alive still causes pain for the families of his 2 victims.
Well, I took 2 members of their families and I took them completely out of their lives. I don't think I could forgive me for it, and I don't expect them to forgive me.
All right, so how do the families feel?
Peter, we spoke today by phone with a cousin of one of the victims. He wept on the phone when discussing the murders as if they'd happened 30 days ago, not 30 years ago. I mean, his feelings are clear. He wants Smith put to death. So do most of the families of the victims here who have spoken out, and they intend to go to the Montana Parole Board to make that point clear. Now, there is one exception. A daughter of one of the victims has said she doesn't want to see him put to death because she doesn't believe in the death penalty. But make no mistake, she has no sympathy for Ron Smith. She says she wants him to suffer in prison and live with the consequences of his crime, just like she does every day.
All right. Thanks, Mark. Now, you can watch more of Mark's interview with Ron Smith. That's tomorrow night on Connect. That's at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on CBC News Network, just before the National.